Welcome to the 23rd edition of Podcasters. Today with Krijn, Janse. Welkom Krijn.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Well, introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
So I'm Krijn. I am a senior conversation consultant at CGI. Been working there now for about 9 months. And before that, I worked at ANWB as a UX and conversation designer. And before that, as a product owner, conversational and voice interfaces at Talpa Network, a media corporation in the Netherlands. And I'm also a board member of Women in Conversational.
And how old are you?
I'm 29.
You're 29. And here comes the interesting thing.
Oh, right.
You're conversation designer avant la lettre. You're one of the first ones in the Netherlands.
Yes.
And here comes the interesting thing. You're one of the youngest.
Yeah.
And one of the most experienced one. And I'm really happy you're here because we met at Beers and Bots. Mm-hmm. And we had an interesting conversation and we agreed that, on what the world was looking like. So I invited you over. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's important to explain what CGI does, your current company.
Yes. So CGI is an IT consultancy company. It's worldwide and we have a conversational team in the Netherlands, but also in other countries. We are a system integrator, so basically we are able to work, of course, with every platform, and that makes it super interesting. And the reason why I joined quite recently is because our team is very diverse with the backgrounds from linguistics. I come from more of a UX perspective, from development, totally different fields unrelated to language or technology. And that, is quite exciting.
And before we started this podcast, we had a small discussion about diversity and the walks of lives of people in conversational AI, conversation design. How did you end up? Because at some point you ended up in conversation design. Forget the age thing, because I think it's totally. If someone is good at what he or she does, who cares? It's irrelevant. We look at output, performance, and that's, I think, much more important. And who you are as a person. So, how did you end up in conversational AI, conversation design? Because, as you said, it's diverse. And what we realized before we started this podcast is that if you look at all the people in the podcast, everybody has a different walk of life and ended up in this business.
Yes.
And not out of necessity, but out of passion. And so I'm curious, what happened to you?
Well, it actually happened through my internship that I did at Talpa Network. I was about...
Maybe it's good to explain. Talpa is a Dutch media outlet?
Media organization, which I think people worldwide might know from formats as Big Brother or The Voice. Those are formats from them.
Big Brother is safer nowadays than The Voice?
Yes.
Although
you never know. And I was about to write my thesis and I said to my manager back then, I prefer not to work with web or app because I sort of felt like the whole mobile first principle. I saw people making a design on a little screen and just enlarging it instead of really looking at what that piece of technology could do.
It is your UX person, right?
Yes,
talking.
Exactly. And then he was like, okay, we see right now that Amazon Alexa is brand new in the States. Can you research it, how to design for it, what it means for Talpa, and everything surrounding it, from marketing campaigns to anything. And that's how I started actually.
So Alexa did it.
Alexa did it, yeah.
So let's blame Alexa.
Yes.
and then, but that was voice.
Yes.
And somehow from voice, you also got into text.
Text, you mean the chatbot?
Yeah.
Yes. At some point at Talpa Network, I was like, okay, I want to try something new, try something differently. And I switched to ANWB with their chatbot.
We have to explain. ANWB is the Dutch organization
Dutch organization I think, how to explain it?
I can
does
explain
quite
it.
a lot.
If people have, it's roadside assistance. That's one of their services.
Yes.
That's how it started.
Yes, it's the main.
So it's basically the organization where if you have a car, you become a member, and if you run into problems along the road, they will fix your car or try to fix your car or tow it away in order to get you going. And that's the basic, and now they sell insurance and other services and travel and became more. But you're a member of the organization, and then you can become a client.
Yeah, it's the biggest member association in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And I wanted to try to go from voice, where you either have sometimes a screen or a device that gives some sort of light, to something on web and app, but differently, and also see how will it change the way we perhaps interact with websites and apps. So that got me really interesting, and I wanted to dive into with a whole team, because before I was the product owner, I had a small team, but mostly working with agencies, and now I was part of a team.
You were actually doing it.
Yes.
But are you saying that because you say if it's web, then that's a different interface, but you see everything moving, or basically the web pages moving to a conversational situation where you don't have a website like ChatGPT. You ask and you get the results, but then instead of a website or in WhatsApp, or is that what you see happening? That's how we get our information?
To make a website fully conversational, I would say it really depends on like the use case. You have the hospital in the Netherlands, AMC. Their website sort of functions as a conversational website.
AMC, the hospital. I tried it this week. We'll have to test it sometime, but
it is quite interesting. But I don't see necessarily that we should make websites fully conversational. It's more that chat window, which is now most of the time always at the right corner. How does that relate to the website, and how should it function? Is it what we see nowadays quite a lot? You put a link in it and you go to a certain web page, or does it exactly know where on the website you are and helps you fill in the form? And it's very much knowing about exactly the place where you are and what your question might be at that point.
So it becomes more relevant.
Yes.
And this is interesting, because this is what we see, of course, in the testing, that a lot of the chatbots, not all, have no clue where you are in the website. They give an answer that doesn't match your question, or it doesn't understand.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that we ask stupid questions, but it is a problem, and I think something needs to change. We need to make it easier, or I don't know. I don't have the answer right now.
Yeah.
But we need to look ahead and do something about it. But we'll get back to that later. The diversity thing, because that's interesting. You say all people of all walks of life. Because you're also saying something of the composition of a team here.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the story. Am I correct? That's the story behind the story. Or not?
You mean, what do you try to say?
I'll explain.
Yeah.
If you work in a team that has to make a chatbot,
yes.
If it would be only men or only women or only young people or only old people, you get a biased chatbot.
True.
If you have a team that is composed of every walk of life, you get a balanced chatbot, and you have a proper discussion of how do we serve our customer. And that, in my opinion, that's what you need to have. And then the right questions are being asked by everybody.
Yeah.
And that was my question behind the question. Is it the fact that you have all walks of life in your company, in CGI? Does that improve the quality of the consultancy not in large, but makes the joy of working for them bigger? It's more fun because, we get different opinions. Is that what it is?
I most definitely think that indeed we get a broader perspective on what conversational is, and it also brings up different discussions where, for example, currently I work more on a voice project, and there happens to be someone in my team who could exactly explain what SSML really does within the mouth of a human being, because I know it as a code, what I can do with it, but not really what it is. So it really enlarges your perspective on it, which makes it interesting. Also, with different ages, I saw it in my first project, or when I worked at Talpa, I made a Google Action back then when they were still around, where you could ask any podcast, any radio station quite easily.
What could you ask?
Well, you could turn it on.
Okay. So it's okay. So,
yeah, and
so the Google Home or Alexa.
Exactly, but we try to make it more personal, not only by name, but also by genre or by mood.
So you would say chatbots, podcasters. And then it would start, and it would ask you which episode.
Yeah, well, yes. We were definitely working on that. But what was so interesting was that I know, for example, a radio station that's nowadays called 3FM. But when I asked my grandfather, I said, please, can you just test it out? He said, yeah, can you play Hilversum 3? And I was like, but that's not the name. That's
the old name.
That's the old name. So also in age, you get a wider range of what people call a certain product or service, or even, a radio station.
Can I ask you a generational thing? Mm-hmm. If you, whether you type or speak, if you give an instruction to a bot or ask a question, would you use single words? Or, get me X or find me X, or would you use a full sentence with a question mark at the end? Well, like you're being decent and nice to the bot.
Yeah, I try most of the time actually to do full sentences because I always am quite curious about if it gets the context right and to get it.
Professional distortion.
Yeah. If you get it from one or two words, that's quite impressive. But that's something, I'm just fascinated by. But it depends also what you ask, because if you say like, hey, turn on the light, in every language almost it's the same thing and quite short, where a question which I might have for an insurance company, that's quite a broad question because I'm trying to figure something out. So I'm trying to give you more information, which hopefully the bot does something with.
That's the complex. I haven't run into bots that can do both.
Yeah,
it's either or, and if you want to serve all generations, my kids, for instance, they use single words or two words.
Yeah,
it's like they're WhatsApping.
Yeah,
but it's very. I believe it's very complex to design for everybody.
It definitely is. It's a big puzzle to see how people talk indeed, how they want to be talked to.
So how do you do that? Because I have my ideas on it, but you've been around. Probably this is interesting because you've been around longer than I have in this field. How do you do that? How do you approach that?
Well, what I try always to figure out is language, because we take it, I think many people take it for granted.
Or language.
Yeah, language itself, because there's so many richness in there which we could use to get more information out of the user. For example, just before I repeat exactly what you say, and then you give me a longer sentences or multiple. So those are things we could use to pull more information out of the user. So indeed, if they only use one or two words, I could throw it back at them and then...
Do you mean XYZ? And then you get the confirmation? Is that a way?
No. Just really like exactly rephrasing what they said to me. So like, what do you mean with... And then what the person said, those one or two sentences, in the hope that they paraphrase themselves and give a bit more...
And what if they don't? What if they're still the same generation and they're like, I'm not going to do that. You're going to get two more words out of me.
Indeed. Then it becomes harder. Then we can indeed give suggestions. So then we could fall back to that. And in the worst case, you always have the live agent, and we could see afterwards, of course, what they truly meant. But those are, things I am really fascinated by. I have a more of a UX background, so I'm trying to figure out the linguistic part. But just look at the fallback. I think it's very interesting to see what can you pull out of the user in a more human-like way as we speak or write.
So if I ask you the question, do computers need to learn how to speak human? I've been asking that question quite a lot in the podcast.
Yeah.
Or do computers need to learn how to speak human, or do humans need to learn how to speak computer? And the computer is being zeros and ones, like words, and human is full sentence, question mark, commas, whatever, punctuation. You're saying the computer should learn how to speak human.
More. Yeah, I think because nowadays you often hear, well, the bot doesn't understand me. It's always so short. But it's also because if we don't look at language and really dive into it and what is the beauty of it, then we're not going to get to a place where it is a more natural conversation. It shouldn't be exactly a human being, because you should know that it is a bot. But to have a more natural conversation like we are having, that would be quite nice to have.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But so you're pro starting the bot with saying, I am a bot, to make sure that the customer understands, or the guest understands that you're not a live agent.
Yeah, I think
so managing expectations.
Yeah, I think managing expectations indeed would be great.
Okay, that's step one. I agree, and we see a lot of bots that don't do that.
Yes,
so they say I'm whatever name, and then you can ask me XYZ.
Yeah, I think it also depends on if a certain piece of technology has been around for a while. You get used to it, and you know it is a bot. But if we are there at this stage already to remove it, I'm not so sure yet. But perhaps in the future we don't have to mention it.
If every company has a chatbot, then it becomes irrelevant because everybody is used to it. But now so many companies don't have a chatbot or a voice bot that and also new customers. How should they know it's a chatbot if you take it away?
Yeah, it's like similar to back when we started texting. It did mention which one was you and which one was the other person.
Yeah.
But nowadays it doesn't, because we're so used to it. Like on the right side, hey, that's me.
Yeah.
And on the left side,
that was
the other one. So it's like that. If that does happen, maybe if we get so used to bots, then we don't need it. But right now, I would still say try to manage it.
Okay, that's step one. But step two, in my opinion, should you explain a customer, start your chatbot with, listen, I don't know everything. There could be a possibility I do not understand you. Please communicate with me in the following way. Then I can help you best. We have seen a few bots doing that, but it's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
And that sort of makes a mistake somehow more acceptable, that you understand, okay, it's learning. I'm learning. And most of them are positioned as the know-it-all. Yeah. And then they don't.
Yeah.
Or apparently they don't. I'm not sure if they do, but we're asking obviously in the wrong way because they don't have the answer. Should we do that?
I would prefer not to.
Why?
Because I would like to get as much input as possibly the user wants to give. I would prefer to do it in the fallback and say hey, I'm still learning on this topic.
So am I going the right way? If you don't understand him, then you say, I'm still learning, please help me.
Well, if your bot is more at a beginning stage, then that might be great to add. But it truly depends also, how accurate your bot already is, and how also the amount of or the sensitivity of the information given.
But we know in the beginning you need traffic in order to get better, and in order to keep the traffic going, you need to be, in my opinion, honest and open, and honest that you can make mistakes, and then usually customers, if they're loyal, they'll help. That's not a problem.
No, that is true. That is true. So that's why I would prefer to do it at a later stage and not try to limit what they want to say.
Did you ever try or A/B test where you put it in the beginning or use it as a fallback and compare results?
This one, no, we haven't. No,
I'd be interested to see, because I wouldn't be surprised that the way someone goes into a chatbot, and because so many people are frustrated about them.
It is. We what I did see in another user test is the length of the how to say it, the where you type, basically. It didn't scale. So people then were like, oh, it cuts it off, so then I need to stop typing. Where if we changed it to something that would go along with you and become bigger, then people would type longer messages, but not specifically on the sentence.
But that's something to keep in mind to test that, because I wouldn't be surprised if a certain group that now stops using the bot would be more and doesn't wait for the fallback. It doesn't understand me. Damn, I'm gone. Give me the number. You probably know that question. Who do I call, or give me live chat? That you could take pressure off the call center or the live chat people, and have the bot handle it and learn more. And in the end, that's what you want to achieve, right?
It truly is. But I think also in this process, what you say, like some companies say, we are the all-knowing. If you are still in the beginning stage, it's better to, of course, start with the routing and make sure you just end up at the right live agent, and you take that message about what they say, and then you start building your dialogues, instead of what, sometimes happens is that, like, okay, we have this bulk of input, let's just create dialogues and then think about the escalation later on. But I think the escalation and the fallback together are the two pieces that would be amazing to start with and not to do at a later stage.
What happens to you? You're so passionate about chatbots and service, so I like that. But what happens to you if you're testing, or we'll see later, a chatbot, or you need something from a company and the chatbot doesn't work? What happens to you? I see you going.
A little bit sad. I tried to figure out, okay, what happened? Didn't it get the context, or did I type something wrong or confusing? So I tried to analyze what happened. Sometimes I try to figure out if I know somebody there, and then just send them a screenshot like, hey, this happened. Can you please?
It's fucked up.
Well, I just say, can you maybe fix this, please?
Well, you're trying to be nice. I think there's so many bots out there that need improvement. We should stop being nice, because sometimes it's insulting to customers, to be honest.
Yeah. I think if you don't get your escalation right, indeed, then it does feel insulting, because you don't grant them the access towards the live agents. So try, to figure out how to make that better. For example, with voice, one time I was very surprised that the waiting music was actually really nice, because quite often it isn't. And it got me so distracted, because it was nice new pop music, that when the agent started, I actually thought it was music. So it had to say 3 times, hello, Sawyer, hello, are you there? And so there are ways indeed to make it less painful.
And I think that is something that needs to be given a little bit more attention. But we'll get back to that later when we test the bot. We'll probably run into something painful as usual. If you look at use cases, we've talked about that. What is your dream use case for a chatbot or a voice bot? If there were no limits.
If there were no limits.
Just think, no limits.
No limits.
And we're not singing.
Right now, I'm sort of fascinated with more the, what do they call it? First, they called it voice first design, then multimodal, now trans multimodal. It's basically, it switches between devices, but knows exactly where you are. So for example, I am calling with a insurance company, but that information is quite hard, or I'm quite stressed about it because it's something new, or
hold on, as a client, you mean? Or,
as a client, as a client. So then I want to see it on my phone, preferably. But if that voice agent just stays with me or assistant, not the agent, and shows me visually, yes, a tongue twister, what is happening, then it would reassure me quite a lot. Because if I do it solely via voice, even if it works, people might still want to call the live agents like, hey, did it actually change, for example?
So you want, you're saying as before a chatbot or a voice bot that knows where you are in the website?
Yes.
That could, for instance, be an intranet or an extranet where you log in and you need to change something in your insurance or buy insurance. You want to be guided by a voice bot that talks to you or talks you through the process.
Yes, I would really, like to see indeed something that takes me along with the whole process and reassures me that it is happening and it is going well.
And it sees where you are on the website. It says, here you fill out this and this information. And if you can't find it, it's on your ID card and it's on the back, something like that.
Yeah. It really takes me along, shows me visuals as well, which I need to see. Or maybe if you take the example of a conversational website, maybe it highlights a certain part where I need to look at, instead of just sending me that link towards the whole web page. It highlights like, look here, fill this in. Okay. And then I keep going.
And now the $1 million question.
$1 million.
$1 million question. If you look at your knowledge, and you've got quite a bit of knowledge of the tech stack that's around, and you know what's possible. If you look at what's possible,
yes,
is it a dream or could this be reality with the tech that's around? Forget about the amount of work it is. I understand it's a lot of work. It's very complex and it sounds simple. It's not. I value that. But zoom out. Is our tech stack currently available, capable of doing this, or a combined tech stack? It's
I think just one. It should indeed be combined, but would it be possible? I'm normally very optimistic, and I say everything is possible. It depends on the amount of work and effort, indeed.
But forget. Let's say that was not an issue. Is the technology we have currently available
to go
good enough?
To multimodal, full experience, knowing
highlighting the website, following the customer around.
I think maybe it might be, but we know, I think, on which page it would be. But to know exactly this sentence you need to highlight or something, that might.
Now I'm going to punch a hole in your dream. Because if you need to fill out a form or give certain information, why wouldn't I do that in a chatbot form, a chatbot way, or in a conversational way, guided by a voice assistant? Same voice bot talking over the chatbot. Why wouldn't we combine those two and not log into the website, just keep it in the chatbot?
Yeah, that might be a way to sort of combine voice and chat more. That might very well be possible if we do sort of a handover between the voice agent and the chat agent. I think it's more about, if you start calling with whatever company it might be, your intention is to keep calling. Now, then you might want
consumer, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then you might want to continue that journey fully on voice. But there might be indeed cases where typing might be more appropriate. For example, if I call, like we had in the beginning of our podcast, my name is really Dutch.
Yeah.
So if I do that with an English-speaking voice assistant,
it's freaking out.
Exactly. So then, indeed, it might also need to figure out, okay, in which cases, does the voice bot maybe not work? And that would be very interesting, because do people really want to change the channel which they're on?
Could you? We're dreaming anyway, so let's dream on a bit. Do you see a future possible in conversational AI design, where you start in a chatbot or a voice bot. It becomes too difficult for the technology.
Yes.
It says, okay, I can't understand you, but we will help you. It transfers to a live agent, whether it's typing or talking, doesn't matter. It's either one. And then you solve the complex problem which the technology can't handle, and then you revert it back to the technology. Now, what we see often, I'm pointing, it's useless. What we see often is that you can go from the chatbot to the live agent. And we ended up with a few times with chatting with a live agent. It was actually quite funny. But we couldn't go back. Why, in terms of efficiency? Why, if you solve the difficult thing, my digital coworker, my digital colleague is going to handle the rest of the talk. For your efficiency, you can stop now and go on later. It's not a problem.
Yeah, it is very interesting. It is a research I carried out before, where it was really looking at, okay, what is the role of our assistant and what of the role of the live agent? And we looked at about also nowadays, which is a question I think every organization has, is how can we decrease the amount of time of the live agent, but we still want the input of how it went, how it got handled. And then we said, okay, so you have the chatbot, it doesn't work, we go to live agent. And after that, to handle it how did it go, your NPS score or any other score you want to measure the success rate with, and try to solve the puzzle a bit better so we can improve the chatbot. That part was done again by the chatbot. So there are organizations, I think, that might at least research it, because I have researched the implementation of it. We were still currently working on.
It's complex.
But it's also complex because live agents sometimes, they get a certain score, or they need to get a certain score. And if we would do that, there are ways where a live agent can influence the score. So their manager might...
I'm so surprised.
Might not see it. And when you give it to a bot, then it maybe reflect more of an honest answer. So it's also sometimes, internal struggles to see, are we able to do it? And do people like that we ask those questions at the end? So not only technology-wise, but also sometimes organization.
So you're saying people are actually influencing chatbots? Sometimes. It's a common thing. And you mentioned Net Promoter Score, NPS. Do you believe NPS is a proper... I understand I'm being judgmental here, because I don't believe NPS is a good way of scoring your chatbot. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't help us. But you mentioned it. Is it something you feel is useful for chatbots, or is it too general and basically doesn't help you improve?
It's definitely too general. That's indeed, I think it's more what you see often. It's more for the organization of how well is your chatbot doing. But in your chatbot, you see, of course, the drop off. You see if the success rate and other metrics to see if your bot actually properly handles the problem of the user, not answered the question, but truly solved the issue.
So you would take metrics from the technology, which you stuff that you measure, and use that as a quality or a metric to see how good you're doing. And not use NPS.
I think NPS sometimes, it's more for the organization. Sometimes it's easy to see if you have like an NPS where you say like, okay, what is your score from 1 to 5? And then you have the open input. It sort of sometimes helps you quite easily to find spots that, take you more time discovering while doing your research on the metrics of the chatbot. So, for example, if a lot of users answer 1 and 2, which is quite low, and they give actual feedback there, then that's quite useful to optimize the bot. But it doesn't say exactly if your bot is healthy or doing it well. It just gives you easier access to problems within it.
We used a couple of times the customer effort score.
Yes.
And that was it, because if it's high, you understand, okay, you can't improve, or maybe you can, but it's very complex in itsy bitsy details. But if it's low, you want to know where it is. So you ask another question underneath. And we found that, for instance, a customer effort score, if you change something in the process, you get differences in your score, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that any improvement you make either better or make it worse. That could also be the case.
Sure.
Combined with the other metrics like drop off, it tells you the story of your improvement actually improved or not. And if you plot it in time, then you see if all's well. You see you begin somewhere and you're shit. And then you grow as you pivot. You grow to a higher score, and then the trick is to maintain it. So you can't stop improving, because then you will gradually go down, because they compare it with other bots. So, what would you advise an organization that says, okay, I want to in my bot, I want to have a score of any score? What would you implement? Because you also see a lot of the thumbs up, thumbs down, which are really annoying, because if you get it at every question, it makes no sense anymore.
No, indeed. But it sometimes indeed helps to spot questions or problems quite easily. If someone says, well, at some point, many thumbs down. For the NPS score, what I normally like, if you want to use it, is indeed a certain range. So you already know, like, hey, this is not right. And it also makes the life for your conversation designers a bit easier, because they don't have to read all the open input, but mainly focus on the ones that either are bad or okay-ish. So then, I would do that at the end. But that's also the problem, because what is the end of a conversation? Because what you see quite happening a lot is, what I find it more, it's the principle of design which we have with mobile phones, where it's a screen, and another screen. And here we have this piece of technology which isn't linear anymore. So what is the end of a conversation? Because if I ask about in my insurance, if I want to say, like, hey, which kind of do you have? You go into more of a discovery intent, but that might not be the end of my conversation, because after that, maybe I want to purchase one.
Actually, the beginning.
Exactly. So that makes it a bit tricky sometimes to figure out where would you like to do the NPS, because you don't want to close a conversation too soon. But you also really would like to have some indication if your bot indeed is improving or maybe not improving. So that's something to research, or to simply ask, like, hey, did I solve your problem? Not did I solve your question, but did I solve your problem? Because if you look at it from that perspective, it basically is looking at your bots differently, to not only answer questions, go to certain pages, but truly look at, hey, am I solving it for you? Am I making life easier?
Am I creating value?
Am I creating value?
Yeah, I think that's what we're all about in the chatbot world, creating value. And there needs to be more of it.
Definitely.
If you look at the news, and of course we look at it daily, we see some horrible stuff, we see good stuff. Do you, or did you, see anything or hear anything where you said, oh, if only they had a chat or voice bot, how much easier would it have been? Or you actually have seen in a situation a chat or voice bot or some other related solution where you say, oh, cool that they had it. It made sure, or it helped not getting any trouble, or made life better.
The one that's actually quite surprising, because when we talk about conversational AI, we look at very more advanced products. But Google, a few years back, launched a phone which basically looked like the Nokia phone, one of the first ones.
The old big ones where you could throw with?
Yes, exactly that one. And it had a voice assistant.
Before your time.
Well, still, I remember it. My cousins had it. But I was not too old enough, according to my parents.
To have one.
To have one, indeed. But they launched one, and it only had a voice assistant on it. In, if I'm correct, Indonesia and India, and specifically regions where there's a high illiteracy rate. Indeed. So they could use it. And it was also made, of course, that in areas where there isn't a good internet connection, that you could still use it. But what I think is most fascinating about it, if indeed it becomes more of a worldwide thing, more in regions where there are higher illiteracy rates, it also generates a group of people who are exactly the opposite from us. They start with voice interfaces first, no graphic interface. Then they might go to a laptop when hopefully the voice bot can learn them or help them with literacy. But how do they then interact with a laptop? Do they expect it to be fully voice able or not? So maybe that Siri button on the MacBook, which they now removed, might have been a good thing. Who knows?
Well, that's a very interesting thought, because one of the questions I also quite often ask, if you look at chatbots, my honest opinion is that, and I'm part of that, I have to be honest as well, it's also a question of money. They're not inclusive enough. And inclusive, I'm not saying, what I mean with inclusive is that people who are either illiterate or are deaf.
Yes.
Or are blind, or have a problem with their eyes. Why isn't every chatbot, let's say if it's text, multilingual, voice to text, text to voice, not a problem, can switch easily. That means that we can service anyone.
Yes.
And we do not discriminate whether you're illiterate or not, whether you speak Dutch or not, or English, whatever, whether your eyes work or not. Doesn't matter. Yeah. It's for everybody.
I think it's mostly, it comes down, I think, to budget. Because if you do a multilingual bot, you can auto translate it, but it won't ever be as perfect as
you saw the podcast of Ashley and the Rodka.
Yeah, indeed. So that is really something we need to take into account. And I once also did a research on what is readability specifically within the chatbot. And it's quite interesting, because I thought our chatbot was quite all right. And then we tested it and people were like, I can't read it. And I was like, why? Because just the letters were too small. So we changed that. But in my ideal case scenario, I would like to see, 3 modes of different size of letters. Exactly.
Like you have on websites.
Exactly. But also like you have on websites is a specific font for dyslexic people.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. So you can have one, maybe like a button on your chatbot. Hey, are you dyslexic? Okay. Then this button, it would be better if the whole website would work that way. But you see that those standards are becoming more of a standard. And I think legally wise, we have to, in the Netherlands, within 1 or 2 years.
Something is happening.
Yeah. So there are things changing. Also surprising was that the colors we use in chatbots are not always the right contrast. So
for people who are colorblind.
Exactly. So if you have a team of conversation designers but didn't check your contrast, people don't read it. So there's no, or can't read it. So there's no point of designing the conversation.
I don't. Interestingly enough, I work with an applied psychologist who's actually colorblind. We never talked about this in the chatbot. I never realized the contrast could actually, apparently he could read it.
Yes.
But I never realized that being colorblind could have influence on the readability of your chatbot.
Yeah.
But,
and it's the same, the contrast, which is quite interesting because company, of course, have their guidelines of colors.
Ooh.
But they use the same colors for their chat window as they use for their website. And in case it is a floating one, so one that moves along, it causes trouble because...
I'm just looking at the podcasters logo. It might be horrible for people who are colorblind.
It might be. But then it also happens that your chatbot blends in with the website.
Yeah.
So then people, again, can't really read it or make out what is chatbot, what is actually the website. So just the question, what is readability for your chatbot is quite interesting to research, because we do it now slowly but surely more for the website. But now there's this thing, if you have a floating one, which isn't like stuck on a certain page of your website, quite useful to see, and especially to user test, because that's where we found out the most things. Is just let users type something, we give them a scenario, they go across the website, and some points they were like, I really can't read it or make out the difference, and just try to fix it step by step.
This is good knowledge because I don't think anybody ever talked to me about colorblind people having trouble with reading the chatbot. But if they can't see it, they can't complain.
Yeah.
That's also a thing.
Yeah. Readability or dyslexia, but it raises the question, which I found was very interesting, which I throw back more at the organization. Like, we can have conversation designs, but if people can't read it, then
that's useless.
Yes. So.
And what do you think? You say dyslexia, but what I see in a lot of chatbots that the chunks of text are unless you're quoting something from a website, the information someone asked for, then it's fine because it would be on the website. But I see chunks of text so big, and the window so small that even on a regular, it's a good sized screen we're looking at, it's not readable.
True.
You need to scroll, and it's annoying.
When we looked at the same research of readability, that was one of the points where we had one that was stuck on the website, and there it's fine. People could read it easily, but when it turned into the window, then we had a problem. But what was more annoying even is when you get those messages, the first one that you quite often still have to read if you didn't have a sort of timeout between the chat bubbles.
It disappears?
It disappears. So you need to scroll up, then scroll down again. So that became really annoying, and we really start to adjust our text accordingly.
And more time in between.
And more time. Look at what is the average reading speed and try to incorporate that. And that kind of already helped a bit, because then users also are not overwhelmed immediately by the whole text. Because when you have that situation where you need to scroll up, you're like, oh, shoot, what is happening? And you get stressed, while you don't need to be stressed, because we can solve.
The point of a chatbot is to decrease stress.
Yes.
This is really interesting, because I think a part of the technology that's out there doesn't cater to this specific need where you can adjust the speed, the time between messages. And maybe we forcibly should limit the amount of characters you can send to a customer in one message. Just, force them
to be mindful.
Twitter it up or down maybe. Just so many characters and that's it. And reduce to the max. And sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, as long as you get the message hopefully across. I think maybe what sometimes is interesting, people feel obliged, like they have to say something. But you can quite easily test it with users or even with your colleagues, like, does this amount of length and this one convey the same amount of information, or at least the point that you really need to make in it?
I experimented once in a chatbot where we had information. We tried to make it as short as possible, and it's really hard.
Yes.
And then we thought, okay, but some people need more information here in order to take a decision or have informed consent or whatever. We need to inform them if they want to. So we put an I the information in the conversation.
Yeah.
It was technically, it's not easy, but it's technically possible, where you clicked on it and then a window opened over the chatbot to explain, and you could read more and then click down and then continue.
Yeah.
So you could inform if you wanted to. Everything is logged, of course, so you know that they did it.
Yeah.
So afterwards, the customer can say, I didn't inform myself.
Yeah.
No, you did.
Yeah. Yeah, you could solve it like that with more of a graphic user interface solution. Or you could say we wait for the user to ask, like, hey, can you elaborate on it? And then give more context with it. Or you could even immediately put it there, like, does this provide you enough information, or do you need more?
Actually, that question is a better one. Now that I think of it, because then you learn for future conversations, statistically, how many people need it and if it's worthwhile putting it in.
Exactly.
Interesting. We're learning here. That's the whole purpose. Thank you. Actually, you brought us old news. Is there anything, if you look at the news now, where you say, oh, please change it to something conversational or anything conversational? Stop doing this stupid stuff. Find the frustration in your life.
My frustration in my life.
Not all.
Just the thing. Well, a frustration in life would be, for example, if, I think last week, OneReach made a presentation what they were able to do with ChatGPT. And they had an internal bot or internally where it summarized the meeting in a few bullet points. Well, if you have quite a lot of meetings, it might be nice to skip one or two and just get those bullet points and know, like, okay, this has been discussed, these are the action points, and here we go. For example, that might be a very conversational thing, or if you want to make it more conversational, someone needs to react on it, you get a notification like, hey, this has been discussed, we need your input from this, and then you react.
So if I can, because there's a lot of tools out there that you can integrate in meetings and
definitely
make notes and bullet points. But what if, let's elaborate on that, because I agree, there's too many meetings, but sometimes, damn, I should have been there. And it's too late. Yeah. What if you could follow the meeting and it summarizes you during the meeting and it sends you a WhatsApp, for instance, or any other message. It sends you, what's happening in the meeting and you can follow it.
That might be interesting. I think it might be more interesting if beforehand you could say, like, okay, if this and this topic is discussed, I need to be there.
So artificial intelligence monitors what's being said and says, oh, we need to call him.
Yeah,
and it activates your teams, and you're in the meeting.
Yeah, that might actually be a nice solution.
Actually, I think it adds to productivity. You only meet when relevant.
Yeah, and we just then need to figure out that you should say, like, okay, in which scenarios am I really not capable to come, and which one I am? Because if it just pops up and I am at a place or somewhere where I can't answer, how do we solve it then? Maybe we could do text-based, and you could send a Teams message instead of joining the call.
Or the question comes your way in a chatbot, let's say in WhatsApp, and you see the question and you say, I'll reply with a video, and the video is being played through that tool in the Teams meeting, and it's you responding live. But you're on the beach somewhere and you just left them the message of what's happening. Yeah. That would be a great way of working.
Yeah. That's truly really interesting. But it also brings back the conversation of what is the context of the user, as in where are you physically located at? Because when I started with voice, Google Assistant just came to the Netherlands. And Rabobank, for example, made it possible that I could ask the amount of money that was on my bank account, which, when you think about it, quite nice. But in practicality, here in Amsterdam, I live in 30 square meters. If I say something and you walk by my house, you can hear it. So maybe around the 25th, if I'm bored when you get your salary, I will ask it out loud, but other days of the month, I'm like, maybe not.
Not a good idea.
No. And that's really interesting. There was once a research as well of VoiceBot with places voice became more popular. And statistically, one that became more popular was on the bathroom because you can't touch. So you use voice, and it was around the time where smart voice assistants became available on your AirPods or whatever headphone or earplugs you are using. So those things are, well, with voice specifically, but also in this scenario, when do you use what? Do I call you in or do I send you a text message? Is really interesting to know, where is my user and in what way can I, bother or interrupt his time?
It's fun to dream on the stuff that isn't out there yet, but we know it's technically possible. So I like that at least. We have a few chatbots to test, at least one. I invite you to the floor. Which one are we going to pick? We have 2 Dutch insurance companies, part of the same group.
Is the mouse working?
Yes, it is. Which one do you want to try?
Well, we can try this one, Inshared.
Okay. Well, we see it's already on the contact page, and it says, "Hello, I'm the chatbot." Not a name, just the chatbot.
Yes.
What is your question about? And it says here, it's actually 2 things. It says maximum 150 characters.
True.
And underneath it says, did you know, it's a tip, did you know that you could do everything yourself online with us? Go to your digital insurance folder.
Yeah, but also again, before we start here you see the contrast, that gray on gray and gray on white. We can read it.
You made me aware of this. I didn't properly think about this, but I'm pretty sure that someone who has a problem with contrast or eyes that are not working properly might have a huge problem here.
Yes.
So what are you going to ask the bot?
Well, let's
piss it off.
Let's see. I'm looking for a house.
This is interesting. Once you start typing, it turns to pink. It's pink.
Yeah, the outside of the box starts to become pink, but the letters still are quite
gray. No, but gray. I mean the one where it says send.
Oh yeah,
it turns gray.
Oh,
and if I put it blue.
Yeah, if I scroll over it, it turns blue. I got a new house. So I got a new house because I'm looking. Let's see.
It says passing your address is very simple in the insurance folder. It tells you what to do. If you fill in your new address, choose a date of starting of the insurance, and you're ready. Because your address is the factor that determines the premium, your premium might change, and you cannot choose a date of moving in the past. This is really interesting. It talks to you first like you are a client.
Yes.
And then underneath says, oh, do you have a house insurance with us? It's the opposite. Do you have then we asked... then if you change your address, we immediately ask you if we have to put the insurance on the new address or that you might want to insure both addresses. And then it asks, like we discussed before, did this answer help? You would have said, did this solve your problem? Yes, fine, or no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And we can still type. What happened? Well, we don't have to answer that.
Yeah, but here it does say, did I solve did I answer your question? It didn't say, did I solve your actual problem which we have? Because I just say, I got a new house. So my problem is probably I don't have insurance or I need to change it.
But here's the one problem. It forgot to ask you, are you a customer or not?
Yes, I think that's something that happens a lot with organizations is when do you ask the user to log in? Because then we know, is it a user or is it not? You can pull out more information if you have the right backend connections.
Exactly. And you use the same bot, but more personal.
Exactly. And that's quite an interesting thing because for some things in your chatbot, we can solve it without you logging in because that might be more effort. And we don't want to cause any more trouble.
But you can also log in that's one of the things I would like to see more, that the chatbot doesn't ask you to log into the website. I don't care about all of that.
Yeah.
Just solve my problem. Okay, you want me ID'd. If I call a company, they will ask me, what is the letters of your name, and what is your last name and your date of birth, and maybe the last 4 numbers of my bank account.
Exactly.
You can ask me the same thing here. And why do you make logging in so simple? I know these things.
Yeah.
And on the phone, they give me all the information.
Exactly.
I could be someone else.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
So I prefer like a 2-factor authentication in the chatbot, and then continuing in the conversation. I think that has much more future than all the extranets where I need to remember all the login names and passwords.
Yeah.
And with the risk of being hacked, I think it's a lot more difficult in a chatbot.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting to do that principle first, but if you really want to change it, then you do need to log in, because if I know your birthday, I can give the name, your address perhaps,
but I can call them and do exactly the same thing and still change the address. What's the difference?
That is true. I think,
it's a psychological thing, because we're complaining about data security.
Yeah.
If I call a company.
Well, it's like, for example, today, actually this morning, I was sitting with live call agents to figure out, how can a voice bot help them, or how do we actually mess it up for them? That might also be a thing. But in some cases, they do require more information, like your ID or some type of documentation, which hopefully other people don't have of you. So that's, might be.
How often does that happen? Only if you...
I think it depends on the sensitivity of the topic. But
for insurance, they don't ask that.
For insurance, they might not ask it. I'm
pretty sure they don't.
Pretty sure. Then maybe they should. But it's quite interesting, because if you say we're going to do it within the chatbot, people could change things, but then on the other hand, they can also call and pretend it's you.
There's no difference.
No, but it's also sometimes if they do know your number, then you're already registered at the company and organization.
True, but if they don't know your number, if you're calling from a different number or a company number, so you still get in, you still get the information. So my point is, why is there a difference between channels? That doesn't make any sense.
No, it's true. Maybe
in terms of customer convenience, I understand from people in the companies that are scared for security, they want to pump it up as much as they can. I understand, but practically, it's another barrier to give excellent customer service. And doing it in a chatbot is not interesting, because if you have a login thing where you put in 2 things, people want to scam you, they can do it automatically. If it's in a bot, it's a lot more work, because you don't know what the next question is. So it's almost impossible, or a lot harder to play that game.
Yeah, indeed.
So I'm just challenging you, but those are preconceived notions in companies where I like to fight them, because it just doesn't make sense.
In fact, if you only need to say it doesn't really make sense. Personally, then I would like to have more of now if I want to change something, I give my name, my address, my birthday. But those, I don't know if you could find them on my Facebook profile nowadays. Maybe you could. But if you really want to then actually make the change, then we say please log in, so we know it's you.
Or we send you a code in a text message. Please confirm with the code that you are you.
Yes.
And you get 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. You type them, and that's it.
That might also be very true.
Because my honest vision of the future is that we're moving chatbots and voice bots all the way to the front, and starting giving information, but then handling a process, whatever it is.
Yes.
And usually a process is privacy sensitive in terms of information that goes around. So you need to have some verification of you are you.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe it's going to replace a lot of website or extranets where people have to log in and it's too much work.
Yeah.
But if you could do it in a conversational context, it's easy, and they're already there. Whether it's WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram, doesn't matter. They're already there. So then the only discussion we have: how safe is it? How safe is the encryption of Meta? I don't know.
Yeah. True.
I did an experiment with a friend where we were sending some crazy information back and forth to see if we would get either in Google or on Facebook or somewhere else, we retargeted with adverts for that information. It didn't happen so far. Okay. So far, our WhatsApp conversation wasn't screened for information for retargeting for ads, but still could happen.
Yeah.
Let's try something else because can you say I'm not a customer?
Yeah.
In Dutch. Not yet. I'm nog geen klant. Let's see what it does.
Let's see.
It says, we're saying we're not a customer yet. And then it says, oh, you want to become a customer at Inshared. What a good idea. Choose your insurance, calculate your premium, and immediately do the insurance. After your request, we will receive a welcome mail with an activation link to activate your insurance. If you buy the insurance before 21 at night, you're immediately insured.
Yep.
Of course, you can choose for another date, even if it's after 9 o'clock at night, and the coverage will start the next day.
Well, what is also interesting here is when, for the ones listening, here it says, want to become a member of Inshared, what a bright idea. Then choose your insurance. That's a clickable link, but clickable links are quite often better performing if you put them at the end of the chatbot. Because first you explain what's going to happen and slowly you move towards the action point.
And it should be, do you want to choose an insurance? Click here.
Yeah. Or something. Yeah.
And I'm curious, because if you click the link, would you then leave the chatbot?
Probably, I would assume.
But it's still open on the other page.
Well, but it starts a totally
it starts.
Station. So it doesn't go along with you. It just happens to be on the same.
And it opens a new tab.
Yep.
Okay, that's not how it's supposed to go, right?
Yeah, it could be improved.
It should. The chatbot should be released from its page and move with you to the side of the next page where you get the information and possibly guide you through the process.
Yeah, there is enough space on the right or left side.
And if we go back to the other one, the contact tab, one back. Now
open a new tab. Yes.
So we can continue in the conversation. Ask it if it could advise you on which insurance to choose or which coverage to choose.
Okay, which advice do you have?
Very good. We asked it which advice do you have, so we kept it really general. And the answer is your question is not fully clear. Choose the topic that is the best. I want advice about my insurance. I want legal advice. I want to know more about travel advice.
Yeah, so here it didn't remember the context of the conversation because it would know like, hey, he's not a customer. He asked me about insurance and then I asked him about advice.
You asked about home insurance. You said, I have a new home.
Yeah.
Why would you want to bother with the caravan?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. But also here at the 3 points that it gives, the two that the first one is, I want advice about my insurance, but I'm still not a customer. So it's a bit confusing.
So this is problem number one, no distinction between customers and non-customers. That makes the conversation too general and confusing.
Yeah.
Number two, it doesn't remember what you asked.
Yeah.
So it has no context.
No. It basically tried to push me through a certain dialogue behind the intent of insurances.
I think this one is built to sell you insurance.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not surprising.
Not surprising.
So let's try. I want advice about my insurance. Just if that's okay with you. At Inshared, we believe that you know best, you yourself know best which insurance suits you. We don't have insurance advisors that give personal advice. We will make it as easy as possible for you. Our terms are in understandable Dutch. And on our website, there is a lot of information. You can ask away all you like. So send us a message through our contact form if you can't find your relevant information. This is really weird. We're in a chatbot, and it tells you to go to a contact form.
Yeah.
If you have a question.
Yeah.
That doesn't make. Sorry, I don't want to be nasty about it. I'm short circuiting here.
Yeah. It's quite, indeed interesting, because what is the form? What is your question?
An email form.
It's an email form. Yeah.
And can I just try one more thing? Or in this one, not the other one. We were in this one.
Yeah.
Try switching to English. See what it does.
Oh.
That's so annoying when customers do that.
Do you speak English?
Good that you made a typo.
I made a typo. Oh, well, it did understand today.
Yeah, kudos for them. First of all, you made a typo.
Yeah.
Or probably the word English, or the fact that you had some English words in it. But I'm really happy to see this. They're one of the few that have a seamless
handover between
languages.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't know.
But here it's quite interesting, because here they do give options at the bottom and in pink, so it stands out more.
This is really weird. You have more options in English than in Dutch.
Yeah.
So here we can report a claim, change or cancel insurance, change address even. Yeah. Payment, can somebody else drive in the car? We're talking about home insurance or home.
Yeah.
So kudos for the language, but now we're really confused.
Yeah. It doesn't make it better.
No, but I do think, which is good underneath there, do you have a claim to report to us in case of emergency or in need of roadside assistance, or call our emergency center 24/7 on phone number? Any claims that do not need immediate action, you can report online. That is actually good for putting it in here, because if you don't know exactly what someone is doing, someone might need help and not get through, bam, here's the number, call.
Yep.
So I think that is a good one. What do you think of this? It wasn't designed by you, that's for sure.
I think.
Let's be constructive.
Yeah. I think, well, it's basically what I said before. Like, we are so used to designing from screen to screen, and that's what you see sometimes with conversation design. They say, okay, we have the intent, and next step, and next step, and next step. Instead of looking at, okay, does somebody maybe want to change to a different dialogue, come back? What is happening? To look at it in a more non-linear way, and how to be able to create it. And I think that is sort of what is happening here.
It's very functional, and it's not a conversation.
Yeah. It is like, okay, we recognize the intent, but that's where it sort of stops.
Well, it actually didn't recognize your intent.
Not completely, no. Maybe indeed
completely not.
Yeah. True. They didn't understand if I say I got a new house, what do I want to do? Indeed, and that's something. Yeah, I think very important to look at. Look at things that are surrounding your intent. For example, when we were working on the voice bot, where you could ask any radio station. Yeah, sometimes people don't say like, "Hey, play me radio at 3FM." They say, "Give me pop music," or give me something to wake up to. So it's basically all the same thing, which is to turn on music, but the way and what they try to get out of it, or the way towards it, is a bit different. And that's always very interesting to see, okay, what is surrounding that intent, in that case, play music or play a certain radio station. What is surrounding it, and how can we make it useful for our customer? Because if you say play me morning music, it probably will differ from my taste.
I'm pretty sure.
Yes. So that's something always interesting to look at, about what is surrounding it, because it is language. Some things we say in a direct way, and some things, like I got a new house, have a meaning underneath it that we still have yet to figure out.
You know, if I look at this, they integrate with buttons or links. I would have, after I have a new house, I would have asked, are you already a customer, yes or no? And then have two buttons. No, nothing to type, just yes or no. There's no other choice. And that brings you in another flow, basically. And then if he says, no, okay, I have a different conversation. It can be very commercial. If someone's already a customer, I shouldn't bombard him with commercial stuff. I'm here to help. Okay, you need to change the address. You want more insurance. What can I help you with? If you're not a customer, then you can help me onboard and ask me what I need. But I know you have a new house even. And, there's stuff you need. What can I help you with? I can't help you moving, but I can help you with the home insurance. And then it needs to ask, is it a flat or house? Because that determines what you need.
Exactly.
So I think they're also missing the commercial opportunity here to quickly help me basically calculate the right premium. Okay, ask me the questions which are in the form. You can do the same thing. Make it easier, show me the result, and just yes or no, become a customer, boom.
Yeah, I think indeed you could indeed ask them immediately, like, hey, are you a customer, yes or no? Depends also on what's behind the chatbot, because if they don't have anything yet surrounding home insurance, then the live agent might be a good thing. But at least to indeed confirm, like, hey, we got you got a new house. What do you want to do now?
Just test one more on the other page. The same, new page. Yeah. As I have a new car. Let's see if because you say a home.
Okay, no typos. Trying to avoid the mic. And you went, so I got a new car. Let's see.
And here, see?
Yeah, here it understands. I understand that you bought a new car or are going to buy one, and want to insure this. Choose your current situation. My car is already insured with Inshared, or my car is not already.
So with the car, they this is good.
Yeah,
they dive into, are you a customer or not, with different words, but the same message.
Yeah. And if we say, I am not insured, then they start with, do you want a insurance?
And it says, calculate your premium. I would say, if you give me the following information, I will calculate your premium, not move them to another page.
Yeah, exactly. Make it a bit more active and
in the bot, keep him there. Because as long as you converse with the customer, you have a chance of reeling him in. If he goes to the other page, he's gone.
Yeah.
Conversation is over, and you're dependent on how good your premium is, and you're not guiding him through the process or reading him in as a customer. So I think this is actually better.
Yeah, it is a lot better. There is also actually already like a conversational marketing canvas, which already sort of incorporates it, because it says like, okay, on which page is your user? What are the messages on that page? How do you want to interact with them? What's also the hook? Like, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to talk to an agent? Because if this might be a major sale for them, then an agent might be the right way instead of the bot.
Or if he waits too long, then he pops up, says, we want to talk to an agent or chat with the live agent. Here it is.
Yeah, exactly. And then also to figure out how you can close this possible new sale.
Or I would, if I would have live agents doing they don't have live agents doing this, but I would integrate a button, start video call. Just in the chatbot, in the web page, it's so easy.
That would be really interesting. I think indeed, because you keep them
perspective,
you keep them on the device which they're on,
and they can co-browse. Because you know exactly where it is on the page.
Yeah.
And I think tech-wise, it's not a problem.
Tech-wise, probably not. I think it's more indeed what will be the escalation point towards the live agent, but we can figure that out along the way, indeed.
So we have a new thing for the people listening. Integrate a video call in the chatbot. And then when the video call's over, they can continue. And that's what I said before. How do you integrate? We sort of solved it.
Indeed. It would be then the question, do we want a video call? Do we want just a chat agent?
It's an example.
The same principle,
Anyway, I think we can go on testing, but I think we run into the same things. The principles are clear. Is there any important tip or message you want to give to the people who are designing bots right now, who need to learn from your experience? Even though you're only 29, you have probably more mileage than in this field than most other people. That's actually very good, by the way. It's impressive because the younger you are, the easier you learn and adapt. Do you have a tip or good advice for our listeners, viewers, that they could put in practice for the conversation designers and strategists out there?
I think my advice would be to always think about the context of the conversation. So that both would incline the context of actually what you are saying, what are you trying to achieve? Like we said in the example of I got a new house or I got a new car. But it also means what I said before, when you're working on a voice project, the context in which a physical place the user is in. Because I do not want to say everything out loud to a voice agent. So I think that would be my advice to remember the context and try to work non-linear instead of the linear way we are used to.
And if you want to give an advice to the C-level people in the company, because we all run into the same trouble, whether it's about budget or building the team or the amount of time we need. What advice would you give to them?
Oh, what advice would I give to the C-level people?
Sounds like the village people. we'll play a video.
I think...
You know what? We forgot to play the video.
We did.
Never mind.
We can show it later on. Yeah. I think my advice to C-level people would be C-level. I think don't see it as the thing next to web and app, because that's quite linear. I think there, at least the rumor has it that when Steve Jobs bought Siri, he said, this is the most important technology I ever bought. It's also the last purchase he ever made for Apple, because it puts AI on the forefront. So don't see it as something, that's just next to web and app. It's that window on your right side of your website, or it totally covers your website. But truly look at it as a conversation that should move around your products, whether it's indeed only desktop and app or Google Homes or whatever your product is in.
So basically you're saying treat it as a serious channel that is there to stay and needs continuous improvement and maintenance.
Yes.
And give it the people a budget and time it needs.
Yes.
And we were in the city because you had this video.
A video.
So let's play the video because it's a beautiful example. So what are we looking up? We don't have to talk. It
is in Japanese, so we could talk about it for...
Okay, for what are you seeing?
Non-Japanese people. It's a machine that contains an avatar.
Looks like a hologram.
Like the hologram, sorry. That was the word I was looking for. an hologram, and it basically wakes the user up. It sets the temperature, opens the windows for them, puts already the coffee machine on. Now the user is at work, and the bot sends the user messages like, hey, please come home early, don't work too long. Where
it's like a fake girlfriend, a fake boyfriend.
It kind of is, but the interesting thing is what's happening right now is the user is actually going home quite late. It already switched on the lights for the user, so it actually imitates if you would have a partner, because then you come home, you look at your windows, and hey, the lights are on.
It imitates empathy.
It imitates empathy, and it already like here. How long does it still take you? 10 minutes. Now it comes home, and around the time you are home, the lights are on and the blinds are open, and it greets you very warm. And what is so interesting here is that it plays on something which is more happening in this case, Japan, which is where there are quite a lot of people quite lonely. So it also kind of solves the problem of loneliness, because it does give you that idea that somebody is waiting there for you. Somebody, is at your home, it's warm, it's nice, you're not alone. So that's something quite interesting, because if we look at it from, I think, a Dutch perspective, we think, hey, this comes way too close to our feelings.
Can I say something crazy? Because it's also deceptive, of course. Yeah. But what I could imagine that if someone loses their significant other, or have an ex they miss, they have the image in there and the voice in there. Now with the new technology, you can imitate the voice with 3 seconds of voice of someone, and have that person talk to you the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think, for example, I thought it was like Carla in your podcast. She said, like, I'm working with elderly and GPT, so they can just keep talking. But if it would be indeed the partner they lost, or something, or someone
the partner you never wished you wish you had.
Yeah, exactly. It might be if you want to
Brad Pitt will be everywhere.
Brad Pitt, George Clooney, whoever. That might be interesting as well to see, like, okay, maybe it helps you, or it.
I think we have a marketing hit here.
Yeah.
Selling voice and image. No, but this is it's interesting, and at the same time, it's also it's good that it's there, and it's somewhere also a little bit sad.
It is sad.
It's me mixed emotions.
Just very interesting that it plays into something that's happening within a certain country or culture, and it just wonders what, for example, in the Netherlands would be our gap to dive into with conversational AI.
Yeah, but what it does is it combines conversational with sort of sensing, analyzing feelings, and giving that a label, and then responding to that or playing into that emotion. Yeah. And it's actually it's like a playground for commercial activities, because if you understand someone's emotion properly, you know when to sell, when not to sell.
Yeah, and I think that's still quite tricky, because Google tried it and it went horribly wrong with their Disney ad. That somebody asked, like, hey, what's on my agenda today? And then it got an ad of a Disney movie that was about to come out. And you could hear that child in the background go, yay, I want to go. And the parent was like, oh, shit, now I have to go with the child. So it is indeed how personal we get, how more interesting it would be to get those advertisements. Although, it might create a bit more of a funnel, which we might not want to be into.
I guess the future will tell us, Krijn.
Yeah.
I think we're at the end of our podcast for today. With all the developments we've seen, I think it's a good idea. And maybe in a year's time you come back and see what of our futurology came to life, and see what happened, because technology is moving fast. We're moving fast.
Yeah.
I'll be following your progress because you're ahead of everybody. So, and if someone wants to find you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Okay. Krijn Janse. That would be K-R-I.
We'll put a link in the bio of the video and in Spotify, so they can find you. Thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed the talk.
Thank you for having me.
And let's do this again sometime in the future.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.